Mira was an architect who believed every structure had a story. She did not only design new buildings. She loved old places that people had forgotten. Broken houses, empty stations, and silent factories always caught her attention. While others saw damage and dust, Mira saw history and hidden meaning. One morning, she traveled to a small town for a short project. The town was quiet, with narrow roads and old shops that looked like they had not changed for years. After finishing her work early, Mira decided to walk around before leaving. She liked to explore places without a plan. As she walked near the edge of the town, she noticed a long rusted fence. Behind it stood an old train resting on unused tracks. The train looked tired. Its paint had faded, windows were cracked, and plants had grown around the wheels. The area felt silent, as if time had stopped there. Mira stopped walking. Something pulled her attention toward the train. She had seen many old structures before, but this one felt different. It was not just abandoned. It felt hidden. She walked closer to the fence and looked carefully. The train had many cars, all connected, and each one looked strong despite its age. The metal body was thick, and the design seemed unusual for a normal passenger train. A man suddenly spoke from behind her. People usually do not stop here. Mira turned around and saw an older man standing near a small wooden shed. His name was Ron. He was the caretaker of the land, even though there was little to take care of now. Mira smiled and asked about the train. Ron explained that the train had been sitting there for more than 30 years. It stopped running suddenly one day and was left behind. The company that owned it shut down, and no one came back for it. The town did not have money to remove it, so it stayed. Many people tried to scrap it, Ron said, but the cost was too high. Others thought it might be dangerous to touch. Over time, everyone forgot about it. Mira asked if she could go inside. Ron looked surprised but nodded. He unlocked a small gate in the fence and let her through. As Mira stepped closer, she felt a strange calm. She placed her hand on the cold metal of the train. The surface was rough, but solid. This was not weak junk. This train was built to last. Inside the first car, dust covered the floor. Old seats were lined up neatly, but something felt off. Mira noticed the walls were thicker than normal. The windows were placed higher than usual, and the ceiling design looked more complex. She walked slowly, observing every detail. Her mind began to work automatically, measuring spaces, comparing designs, and noticing patterns. This is not normal, she thought. Ron asked her why she looked so serious. Mira explained that the train design was unusual. It did not match common passenger trains from that time. Ron laughed and said that if she wanted it, she could have it for almost nothing. The town wanted it gone. Mira asked how much. Ron smiled and said $1. She thought he was joking, but he was serious. The town council agreed that anyone willing to take responsibility for the train could buy it for $1. Mira stood silent for a moment. Buying a whole train sounded crazy. She did not even know why she wanted it. But deep inside, her instincts told her this train mattered. She agreed. Ron wrote a simple agreement, and Mira handed him $1. Just like that, she became the owner of an abandoned train. That night, Mira could not sleep. Her mind kept returning to the train. She replayed every detail she had seen. The walls, the layout, the silence inside. It felt like the train was keeping a secret. The next day, she returned with tools, a notebook, and a camera. She wanted to document everything before making any decisions. She started from the first car again. This time, she measured the walls. They were thicker than needed. She tapped them gently and heard a solid sound, not hollow like normal walls. In one corner, she noticed marks on the floor where something heavy had once been placed. The scratches were deep, made by metal, not furniture. As she moved to the second car, she found sealed compartments that were not listed on any visible plans. Some doors were hidden behind panels, painted carefully to blend in. Mira felt excitement mixed with confusion. Why would someone build such a train and then abandon it? She found old numbers written behind a broken sign. They looked like codes or labels. She wrote them down. Hours passed, but Mira did not feel tired. Every step revealed something new. This was no accident. Someone had designed this train for a special purpose. Near sunset, she reached the final car. It was locked. The door was heavy, and the lock was complex, even after all these years. Mira tried to look through a crack but could see nothing inside. She stepped back and looked at the entire train from outside. The setting sun cast long shadows, making the train look almost alive. Mira realized that buying the train was not just a random decision. It was the beginning of something much bigger. She did not know yet that this forgotten machine carried a secret worth millions. All she knew was that the train had chosen her, and she was ready to listen. The next morning, Mira returned to the train before sunrise. The air was cool, and the town was still asleep. She liked working early, when the world felt quiet and honest. Carrying a small bag of tools and her notebook, she unlocked the fence and stepped inside the train again. The silence inside felt deeper than before. It was not empty silence. It felt protected, as if the train was holding its breath. Mira began with the second car. She removed a loose wall panel she had noticed the day before. Behind it was a narrow space, carefully built and reinforced with metal beams. This space was not random. It had a purpose. She measured everything and wrote notes. The space could hold heavy items. The floor beneath it was stronger than normal, designed to support weight. This was not done by mistake. As she moved forward, she found more hidden areas. Some were small, just enough to hide documents. Others were large enough to store boxes or equipment. Every hidden section was sealed carefully and placed where it would not be noticed. Mira felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. Whoever built this train invested time, money, and planning. This was not a simple transport vehicle. She stopped to rest and looked out of a cracked window. The town looked peaceful and unaware. People passed by every day without knowing what rested behind the fence. Later that morning, Ron arrived. He brought coffee and asked how the work was going. Mira showed him her notes and explained what she had found. Ron looked surprised. He said the train was rumored to be special, but no one ever proved it. Some older people once said it carried important cargo, but those stories faded with time. Mira asked if there were any old records about the train. Ron thought for a moment and said the town office might have boxes of old papers stored away. They walked together to the small town office. Inside, dusty shelves held folders that no one had touched in years. After hours of searching, Mira found a thin file with faded ink. The file mentioned a special transport project from many years ago. The details were limited, but it confirmed that the train was not a normal one. It was built for secure movement, secrecy, and strength. Mira felt her heart race. This was proof. That afternoon, she returned to the train alone. She decided to focus on the locked final car. She studied the lock carefully. It was old but advanced for its time. It required patience, not force. Using simple tools and careful hands, she worked on the lock for hours. Finally, with a soft sound, it opened. The door was heavy. When she pushed it open, she felt a sudden change in the air. The space inside was clean compared to the other cars. Dust was present, but the structure was untouched. Inside, she saw metal shelves built into the walls. Some were empty, but others still held sealed containers. The containers were labeled with faded markings and numbers. Mira did not open anything yet. She believed in respect. She photographed everything and wrote detailed notes. She noticed that the floor panels were removable. Beneath them were more hidden spaces. As evening approached, she sat inside the final car, thinking. The train was clearly designed to move valuable items quietly. But why was it abandoned here? She checked the dates on the labels. They matched a period of sudden company closures and unfinished projects. Something must have gone wrong. That night, Mira researched using public records and libraries. She learned that the company that owned the train disappeared after a failed merger. Legal disputes followed, and assets were frozen. The train was likely forgotten during the chaos. Mira realized something important. Forgotten does not mean empty. The next day, she contacted a legal advisor. She wanted to ensure everything she did was proper. The advisor confirmed that the purchase was valid and that any findings needed documentation. This gave Mira confidence. She returned to the train with better lighting and safety tools. She carefully opened one of the smaller containers. Inside were rolled papers sealed in protective covers. They were original blueprints. The designs showed underground vaults, secure storage units, and transport systems connected to rail routes. The value of these designs alone was high. They were innovative, even by modern standards. Mira understood now. The train was not just carrying items. It was carrying ideas. She found another container with coins and medals from different eras. Each item was stored carefully, protected from damage. These were rare and valuable. Mira closed the container slowly. Her hands were steady, but her mind was racing. This train was a moving archive, a silent guardian of wealth and knowledge. She decided not to tell anyone yet. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the discovery. She wanted to understand the full story before sharing it. As the sun set, Mira stood outside the train and looked at it again. What once looked like junk now stood like a quiet monument to planning and secrecy. She smiled softly. The $1 train was revealing its truth, piece by piece. And she knew this was only the beginning. Mira woke up early again, but this time her mind felt heavier. The discoveries from the train stayed with her all night. She knew she was standing at the edge of something important. She also knew that one wrong step could cause problems she did not want. After breakfast, she returned to the train with calm focus. Today, she planned to examine the floor sections she had noticed earlier. The removable panels were not random. They were placed with care. She started in the final car. Using a flat tool, she lifted the first panel slowly. Under it was a narrow metal ladder leading down into a hidden space. The opening was small but strong, reinforced with thick steel. Mira took a deep breath and climbed down carefully. The space below was lower than expected. It ran along the length of the car, like a secret hallway. Small lights were fixed into the walls, powered by an old battery system that somehow still worked. She felt amazed. This was not just storage. This was a design space meant for people to access and move inside. At the far end of the hidden hallway, she found another locked door. This one looked different. The metal was smooth, and the lock had symbols instead of numbers. Mira studied the symbols. They matched markings she had seen on the containers upstairs. Slowly, she matched the pattern and turned the lock. The door opened. Inside was a compact room with shelves, drawers, and a strong metal table in the center. Everything was clean, almost untouched by time. The air felt cool and dry, protected from moisture. On the shelves were small boxes, each labeled carefully. Mira opened one. Inside were old documents, wrapped in protective layers. These were not blueprints. These were agreements, plans, and letters. She read slowly. The letters explained that the train was part of a private project. Its goal was to move valuable assets during unstable times. The creators believed that hiding in plain sight was safer than locking everything underground. The train was meant to travel, stop briefly, then move again. But something stopped it. Mira found a final letter placed separately. It explained that the project leaders were forced to shut everything down suddenly. Legal pressure, missing partners, and fear of loss caused them to abandon the train before its final journey. The letter ended with a simple sentence. If this train is found, let it be handled with care. Mira sat quietly for a long time. She felt like she was listening to voices from the past. She climbed back up and locked the hidden room again. She believed that secrets deserved patience. Later that day, Ron visited again. He noticed her serious expression and asked if everything was fine. Mira chose her words carefully. She said the train had historical value and needed protection. Ron nodded and said the town would support her if she wanted to preserve it. That evening, Mira contacted a museum advisor she trusted. She did not give full details, but she mentioned a unique transport structure with hidden design features. The advisor showed strong interest and asked to see it. Mira agreed but decided to show only selected areas. The next day, the advisor arrived. Her name was Lena. She walked through the train with wide eyes, impressed by the structure and layout. As an expert, she confirmed that the train was rare and valuable. "This is not just a train," Lena said. "This is a moving vault." Mira smiled but stayed quiet. Together, they examined the visible compartments. Lena advised Mira to document everything carefully and register the train as a protected historical asset. This step changed everything. The train was no longer junk. It was officially recognized as important. Days passed, and Mira continued her careful work. She opened more containers, always documenting first. Inside, she found rare coins, old tools, and sealed packages with company seals. One container stood out. It was heavier than the others and had no label. Mira hesitated but decided to open it under proper conditions. Inside were gold bars, clean and untouched. Mira closed the container immediately. She understood the weight of what she had found, not just in value, but in responsibility. She contacted legal authorities and explained the discovery. After verification, it was confirmed that the assets had no living claim holders. Everything was legally transferred to Mira as part of her purchase. The value was enormous. But instead of excitement, Mira felt calm. Money was not what mattered most to her. The story mattered. The design mattered. She decided to create something meaningful. Mira began planning a restoration project. The train would be repaired and opened as an educational space. Visitors would learn about design, history, and how careful planning could protect value. She worked with engineers, historians, and designers. Every choice respected the original structure. As work began, news slowly spread. People became curious about the $1 train. Reporters asked questions, but Mira shared only what was appropriate. She wanted the train to speak for itself. One evening, as she stood beside the tracks watching the sunset, Mira touched the metal body of the train again. It no longer felt silent. It felt grateful. She realized something important. The train was never meant to be forgotten forever. It was waiting for someone who could understand it. And Mira had listened. The restoration work began quietly, but it did not stay quiet for long. Word traveled faster than Mira expected. At first, only local workers and experts came to see the train. Then people from nearby towns started visiting. Soon, reporters began asking questions. Mira stayed calm. She knew attention was coming. A project like this could not stay hidden forever. She stood beside the train one morning as a small group of journalists arrived. Cameras pointed toward the rusted cars that now looked stronger and cleaner after weeks of careful repair. Mira explained the project in simple words. She talked about design, history, and the importance of preserving forgotten structures. She did not talk about exact values. She did not talk about money. Even without those details, the story spread fast. A woman buys an abandoned train for $1. An architect finds hidden rooms and rare designs. A forgotten machine becomes a historical treasure. People loved the story. Visitors came every day. Some were students, some were designers, some were just curious. Mira walked them through safe areas of the train, explaining how the structure worked and why it was special. She showed the thick walls, the hidden panels, and the careful planning behind everything. She spoke in a way that made people feel included, not overwhelmed. Ron watched it all with pride. The place that once felt empty was now full of life. One afternoon, a group of investors contacted Mira. They wanted to buy the train or move it to a private location. They offered large sums of money. Mira listened politely, then refused. She explained that the train was not for sale. It belonged where it was found. Its story was connected to the town, the tracks, and the silence that had protected it for years. Some investors did not understand. Others respected her decision. Later, government officials arrived to inspect the site. They checked documents, confirmed ownership, and reviewed the historical value. After weeks of review, the train was officially declared a protected cultural asset. This decision changed everything. Funding became available for full restoration. The town received support to improve the area. Roads were repaired, signs were added, and local shops gained new visitors. The abandoned edge of town became a place of learning and interest. Mira worked harder than ever. She balanced interviews, meetings, and hands-on design work. At night, she reviewed notes and planned future sections of the museum. She decided the train would not only show what was found, but also teach how design can hide, protect, and preserve. One section explained how weight distribution works. Another showed how hidden spaces are created without weakening structure. A third section focused on ethical design and responsibility. Mira believed knowledge should be shared, not locked away. One day, Lena returned with a group of international experts. They praised the project and called it a rare example of intelligent preservation. Some said they had never seen a moving structure designed with such care. During a quiet moment, Mira walked alone through the final car. The hidden hallway beneath the floor was now secured and protected. The valuable items were stored safely under proper care. She remembered the first day she stepped inside the dusty train with no idea what waited for her. Now, everything felt different. A young student approached her later and asked a simple question. "Why did you buy the train?" Mira smiled and answered honestly. Because it felt important. That answer spread online and became a symbol of the project. People shared it as a reminder that sometimes the best choices are guided by instinct and respect. As months passed, the train officially opened as a public space. The opening day was filled with people, music, and speeches. Mira stood quietly at the side, watching others enjoy the place. She did not feel proud in a loud way. She felt peaceful. That evening, after everyone left, Mira returned to the train one last time alone. She walked slowly from car to car, touching the walls, the doors, the windows. The train no longer felt like a secret. It felt complete. She realized something important. The discovery was never just about what was hidden inside the train. It was about what happens when someone takes the time to look closely. The world often ignores old things. It rushes forward without listening. But value does not disappear just because time passes. The train proved that. As Mira locked the gate and walked away, the tracks stretched quietly into the distance. They no longer led to forgotten places. They led to understanding. The train became more than a museum. Over time, it became a place of ideas. Schools planned visits. Designers came to study its structure. Families came just to walk through something that once stood forgotten. Mira watched all of this quietly. She never tried to stand in front of the story. She believed the train itself was the main voice. Each morning, she arrived early before visitors. She walked through the cars, checking details, making small notes, adjusting displays. She treated the train like a living structure that needed care and respect. One day, a letter arrived from a National Design Council. They invited Mira to speak about the project. She hesitated at first. She was not used to large stages. But she understood the message mattered. At the event, she stood in front of a large audience. Instead of talking about money or fame, she spoke about listening. She explained how places speak quietly, how design holds intention, how ignoring old things means losing stories that still matter. The audience listened closely. Many people later said her words changed how they looked at abandoned places. Back in the town, change continued. New cafes opened. Local artists displayed work inspired by the train. The place that once felt empty now felt alive. Ron often stood near the entrance, greeting visitors. He liked telling them how the train once sat alone behind a fence. He liked watching their faces change when they stepped inside. One afternoon, a group of children visited. One child asked Mira if the train would ever move again. Mira thought for a moment and said maybe not on tracks, but it already moves people in other ways. The child smiled, satisfied with the answer. As years passed, the train remained strong. Its structure held. Its story grew richer. New sections were added carefully, never changing the original design, only explaining it. Mira kept a small office inside one of the cars. It had a desk, a chair, and a window that looked out over the tracks. This was where she wrote, planned, and sometimes just sat quietly. One evening, she found her old notebook from the first day. It was filled with rough sketches, questions, and uncertain thoughts. She smiled as she read them. She remembered standing in front of the rusted fence, unsure why she stopped. That $1 decision had changed everything. Not because of what was found, but because of what was done after. The train did not make Mira famous in the way people expect. It made her respected. It made her trusted. People came to her not just for projects, but for advice on how to see value differently. She always gave the same answer. Slow down and look closer. Years later, the train was listed among the most meaningful preservation projects in the country. But Mira did not attend the ceremony. She stayed in the town, walking the tracks as the sun went down. She placed her hand on the metal one last time that evening. It was warm from the day. The train had fulfilled its purpose. Not the one it was built for long ago, but a new one. A better one. It had protected ideas. It had protected history. And now, it protected inspiration. Mira locked the gate and walked away slowly. The sound of her steps mixed with the quiet wind. The train stood still, but its story continued to travel. All because someone chose to believe that junk was never really junk at all.